Hey guys, so what are we working on today? Well, we got this GMC truck in here, and I don't know if you recall, this is the one I did a week ago with the coolant nipple in the intake manifold that had rotted away, and then what I went through to get it out and apart and everything else. So anyway, the customer took the truck, and he said all of a sudden it started to run really hot, and he didn't know what was going on. He said it would idle fine, and the temperature would come down. But then driving on the road, temperature would just start climbing and climbing and climbing. Never boiled it over, but it would get hot. So he thought that, or at least we did too, that there was something wrong with the temperature sensor. And if you look down here, actually, I want to show you something. Here's the truck right here, if you recall the motor. If you look down here, there's a temperature sensor below that fitting. Now, I just installed an aftermarket gauge. But if you look, you see the temperature sensor is actually cracked. It's not leaking or anything like that, but we were thinking it's possibly a skewed reading or whatever. We were going to replace it, but then the customer was like, no, I'd rather have a mechanical gauge, considering half the gauges don't even work in the truck anymore. He'd rather have a mechanical gauge to know, is it actually running hot or whatever? So I put a manual gauge in, and sure enough, the thing, it would climb and climb and climb. The thing got up to 250 degrees. As soon as you come back to an idle, temperature would start coming down. So what's going on? Clutch fan? No, clutch fan won't do that. A clutch fan, after you go over 30 miles an hour, the fan is actually not doing anything. You have the air from you going through the air coming through the radiator, that's more than enough to cool it. You could take the fan out and you won't have an issue. As long as you're going over 30 miles an hour, roughly. I mean, different cars are different speeds. So it's like, plug the radiator? Possible. But looking inside the radiator, it didn't look terrible. I mean, yeah, it's older. I mean, it has been replaced at some point in this truck's life. And probably not too long ago. I was going to show you a video, too, when I put that gauge in. This thing had a coolant nipple here. Those rubber stoppers. Sorry. Those rubber stoppers right there. It was corroded and stuff like that, and it was cracking, so I replaced that. I was going to make a video of it, but I was just thinking, I wound up not doing it. So, anyway, I mean, you look, the radiator is not that old. So what could cause it? Thermostat? Customer put his own thermostat in. Just thinking about it a little bit. Coolant flow. Oh, the water pump's not leaking or anything. What could be wrong with the water pump? Over the years, I've seen the impellers inside water pumps. I've seen them, through electrolysis or just acidy coolant, destroy the impellers. Okay, I've seen that. It's not the problem on this one. We got the water pump off. The problem is the water pump, but it's not because of that. Look at this. So there's the water pump. That impeller looks fine, doesn't it? I mean, it doesn't look like anything. It's not grinding up on the housing or anything like that. It actually looks fine. This is basically a small block Chevy with 2 cylinders missing. On these water pumps, you could take the back cover off. So everything doesn't, I mean, it doesn't look bad, right? Look at that. Look at that. I mean, it's not coming off, but I'd be willing to bet at idle, it was spinning just enough to give it some kind of movement, coolant movement. Because even when I filled the cooling system after changing that fitting, I thought everything was fine. I took it for a ride. Everything seemed fine. So that must have been loose and just eventually got worse. I mean, he had it for a couple days, and he just said the temperature just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. So, but, I mean, that's pretty interesting. I've been doing this for 40 years professionally, and that is only the 3rd time I've ever seen that. 3rd time. That'll throw you for a loop, trying to figure that one out. So I was like, you know what? Mo is the one who's taking this apart. I don't know if I mentioned that. But I figured, you know what? On this, it's easy enough. Pop the water pump off and take the back cover off. What's the worst you're going to find? If the water pump is fine, well, then you probably need a motor. It might have a blown head gasket or something. But it never led to thinking, hey, it's got a blown head gasket, cracked head, anything like that. It never got to that. The coolant, like, it's draining right now. You can hear it. But the coolant doesn't even stink. Usually when you have a bad head gasket or whatever, the coolant stinks. And I mean, the guy did overheat it when he blew that connector out. It did overheat. But Did it actually overheat? Or did he just see a whole bunch of steam and he was smart enough and shut it down? So yeah, I mean, that's pretty interesting. Third time in my life I've seen that in 40 years. So it's something to remember. It's something to keep in the back of your mind because it's stuff that does happen. Pretty interesting though. I mean, there you can see the shaft. I could turn the shaft and let's see, hold on, let me get in this position where you can actually see something here. Oops. But there, I could turn the shaft. See, I can actually see there. So, yay. Well, at least we know what the problem is. So, but just that's pretty interesting. The fact that just you could sit there and idle all day long, and the temperature was staying right around 210. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, as soon as you started going down the road, it's like temperature just kept climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. I'm like, but it never boiled over. So it's like, okay, this thing must not be circulating. Is the only thing I can think of. So yeah, I thought that was pretty darn interesting. That's a rare one right there. That's a rare failure, but it does happen. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. So hopefully you got something out of that. Hey, if you got something out of the video, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. I can never say it twice. I don't know why. Tell your friends to subscribe too, if you could, please. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for supporting my channel. I really appreciate it. You're helping me out a lot. It's going to help me make better content, more content. I am working on it. I think you should have seen an improvement in the way things are being done. I do everything with my phone. So at some point in the future, I will be going into GoPros and stuff like that. I'm not there yet. I'm not ready for that yet. It will be happening. Yeah, that's in the future. Hopefully 3-4 months or so, if everything keeps going according to plan. But we'll get there. We'll get there, and you're going along with me for the ride. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks again, and keep wrenching.